Good morning, everybody. How are you today? Once again, we are back for our morning book buzz. We are very excited again, as usual, to talk to you about some upcoming books. We feel like we were just talking, we feel like we have a lot to cover today, so we'll keep our intros short. But I just wanted to say again, welcome to Morning Book Buzz, Season 3, Episode 4. I can't believe it's Season 3. It's crazy. But here we go. We're on to the books. I'm Kelly Coyle Crivelli. It's lovely to see you all this morning. And like I said, we have a lot of wonderful books to talk about, so we will keep our intros brief. I will just have my colleagues introduce themselves before we start talking. Hi, guys.
Hi, Maureen Meekins. I'm joining in from New Jersey.
Hello, everyone. I'm Miriam Tullio. Thanks for joining us today. Just a housekeeping reminder, please use the hashtag #PRHMorningBuzz on Twitter to stay connected and share the books that pique your interest. For your reference, this key indicates title format availability from hardcover, trade paperback, and audio to digital downloads. And the orange E means that an eGalley is available on Edelweiss or NetGalley. In case you missed our Spring Book and Author Festival or Library Journal's Day of Dialogue, we're sharing these links to the archive panel and title presentations, author videos, and resources featuring summer and fall noteworthy fiction and nonfiction, from family stories and social justice titles to literary works by award-winning novelists. There's something here for every reader and listener. And we hope you'll join us on June 14th for the next API Communities in Conversation event with Malaka Garib, author of I Was Their American Dream, and New York Public Librarian Michelle Lee.
And just a reminder, if you go on our YouTube channel, you can see any of the AAPI Communities and Conversations sessions that you might have missed this year. They've been fabulous. And that's on our YouTube channel. We're excited to tell you that we will be at ALA Annual in person. So if for some of you that are going to be there, we are thrilled to see you, not through a screen. It will be wonderful. And so we have some authors appearing both at the online conference, the in-person conference, and at the digital virtual experience. So Celeste Ng will be the keynote speaker on Sunday night. And for the digital experience virtual event, Jodi Picoult and Jennifer Finney Boylan will be talking about their new book that they have coming out, Mad Honey. So we're so excited to see you in person. And also, if you are not going to be there in Washington, D.C., don't forget to check out the digital experience. And also, we wanted to share with you a resource that we have with all of the, arguing and fighting and controversy that's been going on over banned books lately, and the freedom to read to be being challenged. We've created this free poster and a ton of banned book resources, and we hope that you will download our Open Books, Open Doors poster. We passionately do believe that all children have the right to read and to read with freedom. And so we hope that you will request a print copy of the poster on the form below, and also visit our Banned Books Hub for more resources and information on how you can keep on top of what's happening in this arena. And again, we always like to remind you that we send all of this out in the wrap-up report, so you don't feel the need to write down the tiny URLs as you go. And also, we want you to tell us about your One Book, One Community programs. We want to see what's happening in your areas, if you're what you have coming up, what books you've been picking, what resources you might need. So if you answer our questionnaire, again, it's on a tiny URL website below. If you answer our questionnaire, you'll enter for a chance to win one of 5 tote bags filled with a selection of new releases. Winners will be randomly selected on June 10th. But this is just a way for you to communicate with us what's happening with your One Book, One Community programs, and let us know if there's any information you need from us. And we just like to keep the conversation open to see what you might need from us.
And we are excited to present our book club brochure volume 24, featuring titles like The Lioness and True Biz, and discussion questions to spark conversation. This takes the guessing out of what your book club should read next. You can view and download the brochure on issue and request print copies of included titles at the tiny URLs listed below, which will also be included in the wrap-up. And happy Pride Month. On this slide, we're highlighting inspiring, heartbreaking, and unique stories that celebrate the world's LGBTQIA plus communities and their freedom to be themselves. I'll start with Brace for Impact by Gabe Montesanti. This is a powerful and redemptive story of how the dazzling world of roller derby helped one young woman transform her fear and self-doubt into gutsy, big-hearted, adventurous living. Growing up queer in a conservative Midwestern town, Gabe Montesanti never felt comfortable in her own skin. A competitive swimmer, she turned to perfectionism and self-control to create a sense of safety, only to develop an eating disorder and constantly second-guess her instincts. When she enters graduate school in St. Louis, she joins arch rival, one of the top-ranked roller derby leagues in the world, and falls in love with the sport's roughness, intensity, and open embrace of people who are literally and figuratively scarred. But when Gabe suffers a catastrophic injury, she can no longer ignore the parallels between the physicality of roller derby and the unresolved trauma of her upbringing. Told with unflinching honesty and a giant dose of wonder, Brace for Impact is a tender, inspiring memoir about the everyday heroism of pursuing a life less ordinary and the deeply human need to be at peace with who you are. This inspirational story is perfect for fans of Educated by Tara Westover and Wild by Cheryl Strayed. And next we have Bad Gays, a homosexual story by Huolemi and Ben Miller. This is an unconventional history of homosexuality. It's based on the hugely popular podcast series, and it subverts the notion of gay icons and queer heroes and asks what we can learn about LGBTQ history, sexuality, and identity through its villains and baddies. From the Emperor Hadrian to anthropologist Margaret Mead and notorious gangster Ronnie Cray, the authors excavate the buried history of queer lives. This includes kings, fascist thugs, artists, and more. Together, these amazing life stories expand and challenge the mainstream assumptions of sexual identity. Bad Gays is a passionate argument for rethinking gay politics beyond questions of identity and the search for solidarity across boundaries. And this next book is Our Colors by Gengaro Tagame, the genius writer-artist of the Eisner Award-winning breakout hit, My Brother's Husband. Set in contemporary suburban Japan, Our Colors is the story of Sora Itoda, a 16-year-old aspiring painter who wants to live honestly as a young gay man in high school, which is still not acceptable in Japanese society. His best friend is now a young woman whom everyone thinks is or should be his girlfriend. Sora's world changes forever when he meets Mr. Amaya, a middle-aged gentleman who is completely, unapologetically out as a gay man. A mentorship and platonic friendship ensues as Sora comes out to him and agrees to paint a mural in his coffee shop, and Mr. Amamiya counsels Sora about how to deal with who he is. But it won't be easy. Mr. Amamiya paid a high price for his freedom of identity, and when a figure from his past suddenly appears, the situation becomes a vivid example of just how complicated life can be. This mesmerizing coming of age and coming out graphic novel is perfect for manga readers of all ages.
Next, we have a haunting meditative memoir from one of Irish literature's rising stars. When Sean Hewitt meets Elias, the two fall headlong into a love story. But as Elias struggles with severe mental illness, they soon come face to face with a crisis. In All Down, Darkness Wide, Hewitt considers the burden of living in a world that too often sets happiness and gay life at odds, while tenderly portraying what it's like to be caught in the undertow of a loved one's deep depression. As lives are made and unmade, this poetic memoir asks what love can endure and what it cannot. All Down Darkness Wide has received starred reviews from Booklist, Library Journal, and Kirkus, and is publishing in July. Next, we have the highly anticipated short story collection by K. Ming Chang, Gods of Want. This is for readers of Jenny Zhang's Sour Heart and Garth Greenwell's Cleanness, as well as Ocean Vuong's On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. Visceral stories that center the bodies, memories, myths, and relationships of Asian American women. In Auntland, a steady stream of aunts adjusts to American life by sneaking surreptitious kisses from women at Temple, buying tubs of vanilla ice cream to prepare for citizenship tests, and hatching plans to name their daughter Dog. In the chorus of dead cousins, ghost cousins cross space and sea and skies to haunt their live cousin, wife to a storm chaser. In Mariella, two girls explore one another's body for the first time in the belly of a plastic shark, while in Virginia Slims, a woman from a cigarette ad comes to life. And in Resident Aliens, a former slaughterhouse serves as a residence to a series of widows, each harboring her own calamitous secrets. With each tale, Chang gives us her own take on a surrealism that mixes myth and migration, queerness and quotidian. Stunningly told in her feminist, fabulous style, these are uncanny stories peeling back greater questions of power and memory. And finally, Working Girls. After teaching readers the joys of beauty and homemaking in their New York Times best-selling Guide to Womanhood, drag legends Trixie and Katya are back. Riffing on 1980s and 1990s cultural tropes, the charismatic duo delivers hilarious and sometimes misguided advice for women in the workplace. Interviewing office and coworkers to girl bosses getting and quitting and getting fired. Working Girls is at once gorgeous and nostalgic and brimming with Trixie and Katya's signature wit.
And in addition to our book club brochure, we have even more recommendations that we think are great for your book clubs, including the Botanist's Guide to Parties and Poison. This is The Lost Apothecary Meets Dead Girls, and it's a fast-paced STEMinist adventure. Newly minted research assistant Saffron Everly is determined to blaze a new trail at the University College London. But with her colleagues' beliefs about women's academic inabilities and not so subtle hints that her deceased father's reputation paved the way for her into the botany department, she feels stymied at every turn. When she attends a dinner party for the school, she expects to engage in conversations about the university's large expedition to the Amazon. What she doesn't expect is for Mrs. Henry, one of the professor's wives, to drop to the floor poisoned by an unknown toxin. Dr. Maxwell, Saffron's mentor, is the main suspect, and evidence quickly mounts. Joined by fellow researcher and potential romantic interest, Alexander Ashton, Saffron uses her knowledge of botany as she explores steamy greenhouses, dark gardens, and deadly poisons to clear Maxwell's name. Will she be able to uncover the truth, or will her investigation land her on the murderer's list in this entertaining examination of society's expectations? And next, from a brilliant new voice, comes All This Could Be Different by Sarah Thankum Matthews, an electrifying novel of a young immigrant building a life for herself. Graduating into the long maw of an American recession, Sneha is one of the fortunate ones. She's moved to Milwaukee for an entry-level corporate job that is the key that unlocks every door. She can now pick up the tab at dinner with her new friend Tig and send money to her parents back in India. And she begins dating women, soon developing a burning crush on Marina, a beautiful dancer who always seems just out of reach. But before long, trouble arrives. Painful secrets rear their heads, jobs go off the rails, evictions loom. Sneha struggles to be truly close and open with anybody, even as her friendships deepen and she throws herself headlong into a dizzying romance with Marina. It's then that Tig begins to draw up a radical solution to their problems, hoping to save them all. A beautiful novel rendered in singular, unforgettable prose. All This Could Be Different is a wise, tender, and riveting group portrait of young people forgiving love and community amongst struggle, and a moving story of one immigrant's journey to make her home in the world. And a new book from Taylor Jenkins Reid, Carrie Soto is Back, a powerful novel about the cost of greatness when a legendary athlete attempts a comeback when the world considers her past her prime. Carrie Soto is fierce, and her determination to win at any cost has not made her popular. But by the time she retires from tennis, she is the best player the world has ever seen. She has shattered every record and claimed 20 slam titles, and if you ask her, she's entitled to every one. But 6 years after her retirement, Carrie finds herself sitting in the stands of the 1994 US Open, watching her record be taken from her by a brutal, stunning player named Nikki Chan. And at 37 years old, Carrie makes the monumental decision to come out of retirement and be coached by her father for one last year in an attempt to reclaim her record. Even if the sports media says that they never liked the battle axe anyway, and even if her body doesn't move as fast as it did, and even if it means swallowing her pride to train with a man she once almost opened her heart to, she has something to prove before she gives up the game forever. In spite of it all, Carrie Soto is back for one epic final season in this riveting and unforgettable novel, where Taylor Jenkins Reid tells her most vulnerable, emotional story yet.
I'm sorry, I just have to interject to say I can't wait to read that. All right.
She never disappoints.
No, it's like, what would summer be without a new book from her? Sorry, go ahead.
The next book is perfect for fans of Ann Patchett and Ruth Ozeki. Unleashed by Kai Emmons is set amidst California's wildfire season, a vivid and magical novel following a family in crisis, thrust on a collision course with the world around them that has an outcome beyond their wildest imaginings. When Lou and George Barnes drop their only daughter, Pippa, off at college, they return to their Sonoma home to find that their paths have diverged. Confronted with an empty nest, Lou's increasing dissatisfaction with their materialistic lives becomes impossible to ignore. Meanwhile, Pippa feels completely adrift at school in the bustle of LA, its unfamiliar noises, its unfriendly atmosphere. As Lou, George, and Pippa struggle to adapt, growing apart in the process, tensions outside the family are mounting as well. Women have been disappearing across the country with no worldly explanation, all while California's wildfire season is swiftly approaching. And with it, a surprising reckoning is coming, one that none of the Barneses can avoid. At once a grounded story about love and family and a transcendent tale about the power of nature, Unleashed is a stunning look at what matters in an all too chaotic world, the things that sustain us when we are on the verge of losing it all, and how we might find ourselves in the most unexpected of ways. And then we have The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell, an electrifying new novel set in Renaissance Italy and centering on the captivating young Duchess Lucrezia de Medici. Florence, the 1550s. Lucrezia, third daughter of the Grand Duke, is comfortable with her obscure place in the palazzo. But when her older sister dies on the eve of her wedding to the ruler of Ferrara, Lucrezia is thrust unwittingly into the limelight. The Duke is quick to request her hand in marriage, and her father just as quick to accept on her behalf. Having barely left girlhood behind, Lucrezia must now make her way in a troubled court whose customs are opaque and where her arrival is not universally welcomed. Perhaps most mystifying of all is her new husband himself, Alfonso. Is he the playful sophisticate he appeared to be before their wedding, or the ruthless politician before whom even his sisters seemed to be trembling? Full of the drama and verve with which she illuminated the Shakespearean canvas of Hamnet, Maggie O'Farrell brings the world of Renaissance Italy to jewel-bright life and offers an unforgettable portrait of a resilient young woman's battle for her every survival.
You're
And
killing
in
me,
sweet
Maureen.
that one got me. That one got me. I'm actually really
If you haven't read her before, I'm seeing in the chat a lot of people haven't read her before. You have to. She's absolutely unbelievable. All right, I'm sorry, keep interrupting you,
No, that was a good
go.
one. To be honest, I actually haven't read her before, but this one really, really
Oh,
grabbed my attention.
she's
So
amazing. Hamnet was amazing.
adding it to the list.
Yeah, go. I'll let you go back.
All right, we have one more. This one actually really sounds good too. Sweet, Soft, Plenty Rhythm by Laura Warrell, a provocative debut novel about the perennial temptations of dangerous love. It's 2013, and Circus Palmer, a 40-year-old Boston-based trumpet player and old-school ladies' man, lives for his music and refuses to be tied down. Before a gig in Miami, he learns that the woman who's secretly closest to his heart, the free-spirited drummer Maggie, is pregnant by him. Instead of facing the necessary conversation, Circus flees, setting off a chain of interlocking revelations from the various women in his life. Delivering a lush orchestration of diverse female voices, Warrell spins a provocative, soulful, and gripping story of passion and risk, fathers and daughters, wives and single women, and finally, hope and reconciliation in an answer to the age-old question, how do we find belonging when love is unrequited? This book will have plenty for your book club to talk about, and it's perfect for readers of Such a Fun Age, The Vanishing Half, and Utopia Avenue.
As if we didn't just make you put enough titles on your TBR pile, we are really going to overwhelm you with this slide of beloved authors that have books coming out this fall. This slide is in and of itself a morning book buzz, I think, but we're going to give you 6 more titles to put on your list. And I don't know when you're all going to have time to read all these, but you'll make time for these, I'm sure. The first one is The Last White Man by Mohsin Hamid, named a best book of the summer by Time, Elle, USA Today, Entertainment Weekly, and more. And of course, it's from the New York Times bestselling author of Exit West. And it's a story of love, loss, and rediscovery in a time of unsettling change. One morning, a man wakes up to find himself transformed. Overnight, Anders' skin has turned dark and the reflection in the mirror seems a stranger to him. At first, he shares his secret only with Una, an old friend turned new lover. Soon, reports of similar events begin to surface. Across the land, people are awakening in new incarnations, uncertain how their neighbors, friends, and family will greet them. Some see the transformations as the long-dreaded overturning of the established order that must be resisted to a bitter end. In many, like Anders' father and Una's mother, a sense of profound loss and unease wars with profound love. As the bond between Anders and Una deepens, change takes on a different shading, a chance at a kind of rebirth, an opportunity to see ourselves face to face anew. It's lyrical and urgent, says O Magazine, and The Last White Man powerfully uplifts our capacity for empathy and transcendence over bigotry, fear, and anger. And it really achieves the impossible. This is going to be a really amazing book. Next up is Lucy by the Sea by one of our favorites, Elizabeth Strout, and I know how you all feel about her as well. And it's from obviously the New York Times #1 bestselling author, and it's a poignant, pitch-perfect novel about a divorced couple stuck together during lockdown, and the love, the loss, and despair and hope that animate us even as the world seems to be falling apart. I feel like only Elizabeth Strout can write a book, and we can trust her to write how it's been feeling over the last couple of years. With her trademark spare prose, a voice infused with intimate, fragile, desperate humanness, Elizabeth Strout turns her exquisitely tuned eye to the inner workings of the human heart. Um, Following the indomitable heroine of My Name is Lucy Barton through the early days of the pandemic. As a panicked world goes into lockdown, Lucy Barton is uprooted from her life in Manhattan and bundled away to a small town in Maine by her ex-husband and on-again, off-again friend, William. For the next several months, it's just Lucy, William, and their complex past together in a little house nestled against the moody, swirling sea. Rich with empathy and emotion, Lucy by the Sea vividly captures the fear and struggles that came with isolation, as well as the hope, peace, and possibilities that those long, quiet days can inspire. At the heart of this story are the deep human connections that unite us even when we're apart, the pain of a beloved daughter's suffering, the emptiness that comes from the death of a loved one, the promise of a new friendship, and the comfort of an old, enduring love. Lucy by the Sea is going to be a wonderful book club book, and I honestly think the way that she writes is going to give a real respect to what we've all been going through for the last couple of years. Next up, I feel like Kate Atkinson has a cult following, is Shrines of Gaiety. And this is from the #1 national best-selling award-winning author of Life After Life, and it transports us to the dazzling London of the Roaring '20s in a whirlwind tale of corruption, seduction, and debts that have come due. In 1926, and in a country still recovering from the Great War, London has become the focus for a delirious new nightlife. In the clubs of Soho, peers of the realm rub shoulders with starlets, foreign dignitaries with gangsters, and with girls selling dances for a shilling at a time. The notorious queen of this glittering world is Nellie Coker, ruthless but also ambitious to advance her 6 children, including the enigmatic eldest Niven, whose character has been forged in the crucible of Summa. But success breeds enemies, and Nellie's empire faces threats from without and within. For beneath the dazzle of Soho's gaiety, there is a dark underbelly, a world in which it is all too easy to become lost. With her unique Dickinson flair, Kate Atkinson gives us a window in a vanished world. Slyly funny, brilliantly observed, and ingeniously plotted, Shrines of Gaiety showcases the myriad of talents that have made Atkinson one of the most lauded writers of our time. Next up, we mentioned earlier that Celeste Ng is going to be at ALA, and this is the book that she's going to be talking about, Our Missing Hearts, from the best-selling author of Little Fires Everywhere, a deeply suspenseful and heart-rending novel about the unbreakable love between a mother and a child in a society consumed by fear. 12-year-old Bird Gardner lives a quiet existence with his loving but broken father, a former linguist who now shelves books in a university library. Bird knows not to ask too many questions, stand out too much, or stray too far. For a decade, their lives have been governed by laws written to preserve American culture in the wake of years of economic instability and violence. To keep the peace and restore prosperity, the authorities are now allowed to relocate children of dissidents, especially those of Asian origin, and libraries have been forced to remove books seen as unpatriotic, including the work of Bird's mother, Margaret, a Chinese-American poet who left the family when he was 9 years old. Bird has grown up disavowing his mother and her poems. He doesn't know her work or what happened to her, and he knows he shouldn't wonder. But when he receives a mysterious letter containing only a cryptic drawing, he is pulled into a quest to find her. His journey will take him back to the many folktales she poured into his head as a child, through the ranks of an underground network of librarians, into the lives of the children who have been taken, and finally to New York City, where a new act of defiance may be the beginning of a much needed change. Our Missing Hearts is an old story made new of the ways supposedly civilized communities can ignore the most searing injustice. It's a story about power and limitations, um, and the legacies that we pass on to our children, and how any of us can survive a broken world with our hearts intact. So we are super excited to hear from Celeste Ng again this fall. Next up, I mean, how can you even, this slide just keeps getting better and better. George Saunders, Liberation Day. A MacArthur genius and Booker Prize winner returns with a collection of short stories that makes our increasingly troubled world. It makes sense of our increasingly troubled world. His first since the New York Times bestseller and National Book Award finalist, 10th of December. The best short story in writer in English, says Time, is back with a masterful collection that explores the ideas of power, ethics, and justice, and cuts to the very heart of what it means to live in community with our fellow humans. With his trademark prose, wickedly funny, and he is, unsentimental and perfectly tuned writing, Saunders continues to challenge and surprise. Here is a collection of deeply resonant stories that encompass joy and despair, oppression and revolution, bizarre fantasy, and brutal reality. And just a couple of examples. In Love Letter, it's a tender missive from grandfather to grandson in the midst of a dystopian political situation in the not too distant future that reminds us of our obligations to our ideals, ourselves, and each other. Ghoul is set in a hell-themed section of an underground amusement park in Colorado and follows the exploits of a lonely, morally complex character named Brian, who comes to question everything he took for granted about his reality. In Mother's Day, 2 women who loved the same man come to an existential reckoning in the middle of a hailstorm. That one sounds amazing. In Elliot Spencer, our 89-year-old protagonist finds himself brainwashed, his memory scraped, a victim of a scheme in which poor, vulnerable people are reprogrammed and deployed as political protesters. Together, these These profound stories and essential stories coalesce into a case for viewing the world in the same generosity and clear-eyed attention as Saunders does, even in the midst of the most absurd circumstances. And lastly, just getting better here, we're talking about a new book from Cormac McCarthy, which, how exciting. The Passenger is from the best-selling Pulitzer Prize-winning author of The Road, and he returns actually with the first of a two-volume masterpiece. The Passenger is a story of a salvage diver haunted by loss, afraid of the watery deep, pursued for a conspiracy beyond his understanding, and longing for a death he cannot reconcile with God. It's 1980. We're in Pass Christian, Mississippi. It is 3 in the morning when Bobby Western zips the jacket of his wetsuit and plunges from the Coast Guard tender into darkness. His dive light illuminates the sunken jet. 9 bodies still buckled in their seats, hair floating, eyes devoid of speculation. Missing from the crash site are the pilot's flight bag, the plane's black box, and the 10th passenger. But how? A collateral witness to machinations that can only bring him harm. Western is shadowed in body and in spirit by men with badges, by the ghost of his father, the inventor of the bomb that melted glass and flesh in Hiroshima, and by his sister, the love and ruin of his soul. Traversing the American South from the garrulous barrooms of New Orleans to an abandoned oil rig off the Florida coast, The Passenger is a breathtaking novel of morality and science, the legacy of sin, and the madness that is the human consciousness. And then look for Stella Maris, the second volume in the Passenger series that's going to come out in December of 2022.
Now we turn our attention to some new works in nonfiction, from political history to business and biographies and science. We start with Prisoners of the Castle. In this gripping narrative, New York Times bestselling author Ben Macintyre tackles one of the most famous prison stories in history and makes it utterly his own. During World War II, the German army used the towering Colditz Castle to hold the most defiant Allied prisoners. For 4 years, these prisoners tested the castle walls and its guards with ingenious escape attempts that would become legend. But McIntyre shows that the story of Colditz was about much more than escape. Its population represented a pre-war society in miniature, a close-knit community intensely divided over issues of class, politics, sexuality, and race. Participants in the drama included communists, scientists, aristocrats, women, spies, workers, and poets, many of whom were excluded from history because they did not fit the traditional mold of the white, male, Allied officer dedicated to escaping, bringing together the wartime intrigue of McIntyre's acclaimed Operation Mincemeat and keen psychological portraits of his true-life spy stories. Prisoners of the Castle is one of fall's most highly anticipated history books. What If 2? If you made a beach using grains the proportionate size of the stars in the Milky Way, what would that beach look like? Can you use a magnifying glass and moonlight to light a fire? And what if I tried to roll a snowball from the top of Mount Everest? How big would the snowball be by the time it reached the bottom? And how long would it take? Randall Munroe, the New York Times bestselling author of What If and How To, provides his best answers yet to the weirdest questions one never thought to ask. Filled with scientific insights, boundless curiosity, and Munroe's signature stick figure comics, What If 2 is sure to be another instant classic enjoyed by inquisitive readers of all ages. When Mackenzie Comes to Town. From 2 prize-winning journalists comes an explosive expose of McKinsey and Company, the prestigious international consulting firm that earns billions of dollars advising major corporations and governments on how to maximize their profits and enhance efficiency. Often McKinsey's advice boils down to major cost cutting, including layoffs and maintenance reductions to drive up profits and boost stock prices and executive salaries. Here, Walt Bogdanich and Michael Forsyth penetrate the veil of secrecy surrounding McKinsey by conducting hundreds of interviews, obtaining tens of thousands of revelatory documents, and following rule number one of investigative reporting: follow the money. Next, we have How to Win the War on Truth, an illustrated guide on how mistruths are sold, why they stick, and how to reclaim reality by Samuel C. Spitale and artist Alan Wincup. In How to Win the War on Truth, author Samuel C. Patel writes, propaganda is rampant in modern America because we believe in something called the marketplace of ideas. It's a concept on freedom of speech that claims truth will inevitably prevail when competing with falsehoods, lies, or misinformation. This means it's okay for products to make false claims, for news anchors to report fake news, and for uninformed opinions to be given the same weight as science. Patel argues it's up to us consumers to decide what's real, and boy, do we suck at it. That's because we mistake media consumption for media literacy. Filled with cleverly illustrated real-world examples of propaganda in all its form, this book helps readers navigate today's post-truth landscape. And it's perfect for fans that students and educators who are interested in journalism, history, political science, cultural and media studies, as well as fans of political late night shows like Last Week Tonight with John Oliver and Full Frontal with Samantha Bee. And There Was Light by Pulitzer Prize winner and New York Times bestselling author John Meacham. A president who governed a divided country has much to teach us in a 21st century moment of polarization and political crisis. At once familiar and elusive, Abraham Lincoln tends to be seen as the greatest of American presidents, a remote icon, or as a politician driven more by calculation than by conviction. And in this illuminating biography, Meacham chronicles Lincoln's life and moral evolution and explores how Lincoln confronted secession, democratic threats, the institution of slavery, all in order to expand the possibilities of America. Lastly, The Peacemaker, which is perfect for readers of Michael Beschloss and Doris Kearns Goodwin. It recounts 8 years of Ronald Reagan's presidency as he and his national security team managed multiple crises around the globe, from wars in the Middle East to conflicts in Latin America, Africa, and Asia. Reagan's team of rivals oversaw the international expansion of globalization, democracy, free trade, and the information revolution. Yet no issue was greater than the Cold War standoff with the Soviet Union. The author William Inboden is the executive director for the University of Texas at Austin Center for National Security and a 15-year veteran of the State Department and the National Security Council. Thank you. So actually, we're celebrating audiobook this month, and we hope that you'll tell us how you're celebrating and what you're listening to by using the hashtag love audiobooks. And on this slide, here's a sneak peek into the studio at some very recent recordings. Meet the Voice video series has great content to share with your patrons and on socials, providing behind-the-scenes look at what it is to narrate audiobooks. These are in-depth one-on-one chats between producers and audiobook narrators. They're fascinating and fun. Please don't miss the brilliant Saudi-Canadian actor and writer Aisha Kay in interview with PRH audio producer Brian Ramcharan this month.
And some of the audiobooks that we want to talk about are for the Listen Proud, because it's not only Audiobook Month, it's Pride Month. And between the Audiobook Month, Pride Month, and all the sneak peeks we just gave you with all the e-galleys available, I feel like we're keeping you incredibly busy this time around. But some of the titles we wanted to talk about for so you can find some good books for Pride Month for your younger audiences are The Rainbow Parade is first up, and this is a joyful and affirming picture book about a family's first Pride Parade. Reminds all readers that sometimes pride takes practice, and there's not one way to be part of the LGBTQ plus community. Kings of Bmore, two Black queer best friends face their last day together with an epic journey through Baltimore in this magnetic YA debut by best-selling author of Here It Is, R. Eric Thomas. Let's see. When You Call My Name, in the spirit of the author's massively popular Twitter thread, Tucker Shaw's When You Call My Name is a heart-rending novel about two gay teens coming of age in New York City in 1990 at the height of the HIV/AIDS epidemic, and it's perfect for fans of Adam Silvera and Mary H.K. Choi. Kapai Maihu is the indigenous legend about how four extraordinary individuals of dual male and female spirit or Mahu, brought healing arts from Tahiti to Hawaii, based on the Academy Award-winning contending short film. And the short film looks amazing too, so we feel like this will be a great addition to your collection as well. And like we said, everything will be sent out in the wrap-up, so you don't have to write all of this down. And then also this summer is a program called Sync, and it's audiobooks for teens. And you can spread the word to your patrons, encourage them to sign up for the Sync program at audiobooksnyc.com. And what this is, Sync gives participants 2 thematically paired audiobooks each week. Titles are all available worldwide and change every Thursday night at midnight. And Listening Library is a proud sponsor of 2 terrific titles to kick off Audiobook Month this June. Starting tomorrow, encourage teens or anyone who is interested to download Singled Out, a YALSA amazing audiobook top 10 pick by Andrew Marinus, and A Time of Fear by Albert Marin, National Book Award finalist and a Silbert Honor author. Yeah, sorry. So this is a great opportunity to try to get kids interested in audiobooks and keep them busy for the summer, and we're excited to be part of this program. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sure you all scribbled down a ton of books for your TBR list. I know that I did. We really love talking to you every month about our upcoming titles. I can honestly say for the first time in a couple of years that some of these titles in actual paper ARC form will be available at ALA Annual if you happen to come by our booth, which is a crazy, wonderful, exciting thing to say. So we do hope to see some of you at ALA Annual. And because ALA Annual is right at the end of June, and then we go right into the 4th of July, we're going to end up skipping our July morning book buzz. And so we will be back again in August, on August 3rd, and the registration link will be sent out soon. So we can't thank you enough for sticking with us, and we hope you have a great day. Thanks. Thanks, Miriam and Maureen.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.